Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Today's episode, we got a lot to talk about as far as what's coming up this weekend. You'll get our preview and picks for UFC 273. Of course, we got Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie. We got Sterling and Jan finally happening, plus a stack card, Burns, Shemaev, all that stuff. We'll talk about that. You'll get our picks. On top of that, Julianna Pena is making some noise again. Ariel Helwani's talking about doing something really cool. We'll get our thoughts on that. And then, Brandon and I go back and forth on this whole ref debate from time to time. So you'll get our thoughts. Who's our top three refs? Who's the worst ref? We'll throw all that out there in today's show. But first, Brandon, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good, man. You're saying it's Wednesday. You know what time it is. It's time to talk some mamas with you.
Mamas. Absolutely. I'm excited about talking about everything. Of course, before we get to any of that, check out FightersFirst.shop. Check out all the new vintage 22 collection stuff we got going on. Just added a bunch of the Bad News Brown stuff. If you're not a professional wrestling fan, that's okay. Because guess what? He's also very relevant to what we do on this show as well. He was an Olympian in judo, heavyweight Olympian, one of the first African Americans to ever get a medal outside of boxing and track. He broke down color barriers. He broke down age barriers. People don't realize he was 34, Brandon, when he won that bronze medal in Montreal. So we pay tribute to that. Obviously, his wrestling career as well. Rolling out new stuff with that. We're rolling out new stuff with all the collections coming up soon. We're going to be working on some hoodies and sweatpant combos. So check out for all that. Of course, FightersFirst.shop and definitely get all your mechanic collection and make my co-host very, very, very happy because he likes the monies. Like Danhausen says, he likes the monies. All right, Brandon, before we get in the show, man, I want to get your couple thoughts on a couple things that have been kind of popping off lately. Obviously, we don't have any fights to talk about from last weekend, but we did have a lot of action going on. I know our fans hate when we talk wrestling, but WrestleMania was last weekend. That was a huge card. What you think of the show? Was it a good show this year?
Yeah, man. I definitely enjoyed both nights. I probably want to say maybe night one maybe could have been a little more. Probably a little more action packed than night two was. But I mean, it could just because night one you kind of had the surprise of Cody Rhodes showing up, and then also that was the first time when you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin, even though he did show up on night two as well, so that was kind of cool.
But also, like we got the match. Like people thought it was just going to be a fight, or he's just going to show up and do a thing, and then they turned it into a match. Like we thought for a long time that Stone Cold was like, I'm not going to do a match. I'm just going to show up, do like a little kick ass, and walk out. He did like a 20-minute match, like. Mm-hmm. Obviously not 100% vintage Stone Cold because he's in his 50s. There's only so much he could do. But him and Kevin Owens tore it up. Like they were in the audience. They were doing suplexes on the stage. Like we got our money's worth for night one for sure with the Austin thing. I was a little shocked that was the last thing on the card. But then once you saw him actually wrestle instead of just like a segment, I think that was absolutely awesome. And even more awesome that he came out night two. What you think of the whole Brock and Roman thing?
Hey man, acknowledge your tribal chief, my guy. I mean, dude, to me, this is nothing new, man. Dude, Roman has beaten him like the past 3 times. So I was like, man, why are they making this really such a big deal? Like I'm like, these dudes have wrestled before.
He didn't beat him in Saudi Arabia because Roman landed first.
Yeah. So he won that crown jewel. Was it? I think he beat him at a Royal Rumble or something as well. And then there was this match. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was
He lost the crown jewel one because that was the one with the controversy of the cage and who landed first and
Hey man, it was like I said, I was entertained. It was good. Ladies killed it. Well, should I say the Raw Women's Championship match killed it. The SmackDown Championship match was okay. Charlotte Flair doing
it was a train wreck.
Charlotte Flair doing her thing or trying her best.
Trying her best. I mean, look, we know Ronda. Here's the MMA twist, right? We know Ronda loves doing wrestling, but she's still a work in progress. Like they put her in these main event circles because of who she is, but you can tell that like last year, like Becky and Charlotte carried her in some moments, and you can tell this year that Charlotte definitely carried her.
This is why like I get about it, man. Like Logan Paul looked great.
He looked
last year. Bad Bunny was looking good, and it's like, come on, like these guys have been wrestling less than Rousey, and she's still looking like how she looking. Like,
I think some people are just built for it though. Like Logan Paul, for better or worse, you can hate on him, but the dude's an athlete.
Yeah.
You saw it with boxing. You saw it.
McAfee's an athlete too, man. He was athlete, and he was doing it in jeans too. I was like, okay, guy.
Yeah, and Pat McAfee's, a former NFL player. Like, you can say he's a punter, but he goes through the same training camps as the rest of the NFL players do. You can sit there and talk about Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny was in the Performance Center for months. Like, he took it very seriously. He couldn't do everything, but he learned a few spots, and he did them really well. He took it seriously. He will be back once his tour is up. He makes, like last year, he made that little spot. He wants to make like a little spot here and there. WWE's happy to have him back whenever he can, when he's not obviously doing his music. I mean, congrats to Bad Bunny.
I'm like Bad Bunny, a former 24/7 champion, you know?
I mean, a lot of people are former 27. You know what? I feel like if I was in the audience one day, I have a chance. I mean, it's just, that belt is such a joke, and it is what it is. It keeps people relevant in storylines. I get it. But overall, I mean, hey, I give it a thumbs up. I think it was one of the better WrestleManias we've had in a while. And then obviously the touching moment we talked about with Triple H on Slamtown. He put his boots in the ring. It is what it is. He has a heart situation, defibrillator in his chest. He's just never going to wrestle again. So that's our wrestling talk. We won't bore you guys.
Wait, just one more thing. I just want to know your thoughts. Are you a fan of the 2 nights, or you wanted to go back to one night?
I want it one night. I don't like – I feel like less is more. Same thing with the UFC. I feel like we have all these cards every single week. It takes away from the boom. It takes away from like some of these pay-per-view cards we get are kind of watered down sometimes. Like this weekend's pretty stacked, but we've also had some that are literally carried by 1 or 2 fights. We have fight night cards that absolutely are like amazing sometimes, and I feel like one fight night a card and one main like pay-per-view card a month would be really awesome, but we have so many fighters. The same thing in wrestling. We have so many wrestlers nowadays that they all need, a chance to shine. And so they spread it across 2 nights. I know they're making more money with it. I know they're making more advertising with it. They started doing it a couple years ago because of the pandemic. And here we are. And I don't like it. I like the Super Bowl effect. I like the one night you look for it, the grandest event in all of, entertainment, and I love it. And then when you get to like UFC and stuff, like I used to look forward to like every month or every other month, we had like this big show. Same thing. I feel like it takes away from like, you have to watch this. There's so many things. Like, how many weeks do we go in? Like I'll take MMA, for instance, so our fans don't tune out on me again. But how many weeks do we go in? And it's like, oh, here's another card. Yeah, it's got a couple cool fights. Maybe to surprise us, and we kind of like sometimes we half-ass watch it. We don't fully watch it. Like it's like in the background sometimes, unless it's something we really, really want to watch. And because we're fans, we still watch, but we're not like necessarily fully engrossed into it. And I think wrestling has done that throughout the years. We talk about the Monday Night Wars. Well, once they started going from 3 hours to 3 hours and then another night of wrestling and this and that, I think it just watered down the product. And I know you want to see all these different wrestlers, and like everybody gets mad when people get released. Same thing in UFC. When people get released, they're like, why? Honestly, these rosters are way too big to begin with. It's supposed to be the creme de la creme. It's supposed to be the best of the best. You look at baseball rosters, they're expanding. You look at basketball rosters, they're expanding. Football rosters have kind of expanded a little bit throughout the years. And I get it. You have more great athletes across the board. But it really should be the best of the best. Like, we don't need to have a participation trophy in everything. And while I enjoyed most of the matches that we had, I mean, they bumped the Kofi and Woods match to the second night because of time thing in the first night. But that match really wasn't necessarily a match that we needed to have at WrestleMania. You just wanted to get all those guys on the card. That could have been a Monday Night Raw or SmackDown before WrestleMania match. You're just really rewarding some of those guys with a WrestleMania payday, which was great. But isn't that what you had the Andre Battle Royal for? And then you move that to SmackDown? Like, you could have done that on WrestleMania one of the nights and gotten everybody in there and getting them their payday without really slowing down the entire card. I don't know. What do you think?
Man, I just know, man, WrestleMania usually would start at 5 o'clock and then it's ending at midnight. It's just one long night.
Too long.
All those matches. Like, that's the thing. That's why I understand that they do the 2 nights. But my reason for really not liking the 2 nights is just because it affects everything else. Because then you look at NXT. NXT was happening at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon instead of happening Saturday night.
And I bet you 90% of people didn't even watch it.
Yeah. So that's my only reason for not liking for not really liking the 2 nights. Because then plus, as a wrestling fan, if you go there for the WrestleMania experience, like saying you're gonna have SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, like back to back on the same night. Then you got your Wrestle access that you want to try to get to, but you also want to go to NXT. Then you got 2 nights of Mania, but then plus 2 where you're at, other pro wrestling shows are going to be there.
WrestleCon and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to go to all that stuff. So that's why, like, to me, one night you're like, okay, this is why I know where things are. But, I get it. But of course, MMA fans will be like, hey, guys, we do that every night because, prelims start at 6, fights don't end until 1 a.m. So I get it. But, hey, like somebody said, like you just said, but you look at those prelims, though. Are those prelims really all that good during pay-per-view? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. They're saying that's why prelim fights are prelim fights.
Yeah, and then look, we have a lot of great athletes in MMA, and even like this card we're talking about this weekend, your boy Julio's the first fight on the card. It's going to tear the house down. He's going to come and bring the fight, so it's worth watching. But you also know, like, I don't know, like for me, like. For one, yeah, WrestleMania got way too long. Like it start, especially with the pre-show and stuff. Sometimes like what, 4 in the afternoon. Like
pre-show would usually be like at 5:00, and then the pay-per-view would start at either like 7 or 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we used to do, like, me and my friends used to have get-togethers for WrestleMania, like the Super Bowl. Like we'd all come out, we'd be eating and drinking and having a good time. And it got to the point where my friends were leaving the house like midnight, almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And this is a Sunday, like, people got to work, people got to do it. And it just became a thing. And it was just like, it was just too long. And so, for that aspect, I'm glad they split it in 2 nights. But really, like I said, I want to see, this is WrestleMania. This is the Super Bowl of wrestling. I want to see the best of the best. I want to see if somebody's not good enough to make WrestleMania, then that is what it is. Give me like a 7 to 11, 4 hours of the grandest spectacle of them all. And if you want to throw a couple people in the afternoon on like a pre-show thing where people may or may not watch, that's cool. If you want to throw some people on the SmackDown before it to like get some love, or the Raw next night, that's cool. WrestleMania should be the grandest stage of them all. But this is a business, much like MMA. You need the money. The more nights they do it, the more money they make with Peacock and everything else. So 77,000 people on each night. So that's 140 plus thousand people they got tickets for. I doubt a lot. I'm sure a lot of them were there the same night, like both nights. A lot of people, it wasn't necessarily that big different of a crowd, but they sold tickets for 2 events. They sold tickets for the access. They sold tickets for everything. So much like MMA, it's a business. You got to deal with it. But yeah, I wish it was one night, and I wish it was like more special than what it is. But they did a great. That's semantics. I think the show was awesome this weekend. And real quick before we get to this stuff, it's not really like fully out there yet, so I didn't want to make it a segment today. But PFL, they're getting a little bit of heat for this Challenger Series because they didn't really announce to people that it was taped. People were taking bets on it, and then some people obviously knew the results, so were winning off those bets. PFL claims they didn't know anything about it. What do you think of that whole thing?
Hey man, to me, man, if you know
Mr.
something,
Atlantic City.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but to me, man, if you know something is taped, I don't know why you would have bets, be like available for it because it like already passed. But hey, man, that's the PFL trying to do something. But
the thing was, they didn't tell people it was taped.
Yeah,
and I don't think the bookies knew that it was taped. They thought it was a live event.
Hey man, it's the PFL. That's all I can say.
And then what do you think about them mixing up the cards this year instead of having like 2 weight classes? Like they originally announced the April 20th card was going to have like the lightweights and the light heavyweights. They're doing like everything together.
Yeah, as a fan, like you kind of dig it because it's like that one. I think it was that May 6th card. I'm gonna have Kayla Harrison and like Anthony Pettis, and then also too. I think in the prelim,
Roy McDonald, a bunch.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna have Julia Budd and everything like that. So to me, man, that right there is a stat card. Like that's a card that I know I'm definitely gonna go to. And as a fan, if I'm local, I would definitely pay a ticket for it. While the other ones is kind of like, there are some fights you maybe want to check out, but you're not really gonna draw everybody in.
And I'll tell you what, that night, and we'll talk more about it when we get closer. And you got Roy McDonald versus Brett Cooper. You got Magomed Kamirov versus João Zeferino. Like you said, Jenna Fabian and Julia Budd. And that's not even to mention, obviously Kayla and Anthony Pettis and everything else going on. Your girl Vanessa Mello's up in that joint. Like there's so much stuff. Abigail Montez is making her debut. Gleison Tibau. That's a stacked card. So I see why they did it. I think it's really cool, but I just, I'm interested to see how their schedule plays out because everybody was like fighting the same nights, they had the same recovery time, and then they fought the next round on the same night. So they all were in the same exact recovery zone. So we'll see. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. That's like one of the reasons why Ray Sefa told me they don't do elbows because, if you have elbows, people getting cut out, they're out for 6 months. Now they usually can come back quicker. So see what happens. But let's go ahead and jump into the show. If everybody has not tuned out, obviously we do have chapters below, so you can always jump and straight into the action with everything we do. But speaking of WrestleMania,
more wrestling, baby.
Yeah, it's basically a WrestleMania. Julianna Pena, of course, you can call it upset, you can call it shock the world, you can say she called her shot and she did what she said she was going to do. But Julianna Pena knocked off Amanda Nunes last year, and she has not stopped talking since. Ronda Rousey, obviously one of the headliners for WrestleMania this year. Julianna Pena was there. She said Rousey is kind of like a joke now in MMA. She was a trailblazer, then she got knocked out twice, and then she just left. Never came back. And it's like, how can you take somebody seriously if they basically took their ball and went home? I'm paraphrasing, but basically, she got adversity, and instead of fighting back, she left. She quit. Obviously, she's preparing for the tough. She's preparing for Amanda Nunes, the rematch, and all that's going to be starting soon. Is this just really? I'm gonna ask you, like, what do you think of all this? And is this just really Julianna Pena keeping her name relevant by constantly throwing jabs at other people?
No, man. I mean, hey, this is Julianna Pena's opinion, which she has the right to have. It's her thoughts. I mean, hey, she was doing an interview. Ariel Helwani asked her about it, and she just gave her thoughts. Like, I mean, I really didn't kind of see anything wrong with, I didn't see anything wrong with what she said. Again, that's her opinion.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just so surprising because she used to be so humble. Well, she ain't humble no more.
Well, I mean, one thing you got to remember, who was Julianna Pena's friends with? Misha Tate. Yeah. That was her coach on Tough. So, Misha has beef with Rousey. She's friends with Misha, so I mean, she might have some beef with Rousey herself. So I'm not really surprised about it, And it's like, hey, man, Ronda Rousey did get knocked out twice, and then she bounced out. She didn't come back. She didn't fight again. Took some time off, and now she's doing pro wrestling. So, I mean, hey, is Julianna Pena, like I said, to me, I know that she did say, like, oh, she's going to be on Good Morning America, like next month or something like that. But, hey, man, she's the champ. Champs can do what they want,
Yeah, and she made sure that the world knew that, hey, you got beat by Amanda and you went home. I beat Amanda. I'm better than you. And, and she threw that out there. Like I said, it's fun to talk about because we know, for one, there's very, very little chance Ronda Rousey will ever step foot in the MMA cage again. You never say never in this world. I thought Brock wasn't coming back, and he came back a couple times. But pretty much sure Ronda Rousey's cashing like $5 to $10 million a year from WWE. She's not going to come back for $1 million or so for a fight, which could even damage her reputation even more if she lost again. For better or worse, we know Ronda is very emotional and does think with her heart more than her head sometimes, but she's been out of it long enough. I think she could see that that's not a good idea. I don't know who would win with her to fight with her and Pena, because Pena presents a different set of challenges. I don't think that Amanda Nunes was a different set of challenges. And obviously Holly Holm had the striking that caught Ronda. Who knows? Who really knows? If it's a grappling contest, I don't think Pena wants that smoke. Because for better or worse, people can love or hate Ronda, but Ronda was a world-class grappler. She was an Olympic medalist in judo. She was one of the top, trailblazers in the sport. She finished a lot of people quick. But once she got adversity, she went home. She quit. She's done. So, but Ronda's still a Hall of Famer. She's still one of the people that put women's MMA on the map. So you got to give her a little bit more respect. I wouldn't call her a joke, as Pena did, because if it wasn't for somebody like Ronda, there would be no women's UFC, no women in the UFC. Dana forever said there would be no women in UFC, and then Ronda, he saw dollar signs with Ronda Rousey, and he brought him over. So you need to be thinking Ronda Rousey, because without her, you'd still be fighting in Invicta or Bellator or somewhere else. You would not have that grand stage of the UFC. Any final thoughts on that one, Brandon?
To me, I don't think it would have been bad if she was in Bellator or maybe a Strike Force would still be going on, because like I said, the women's division, they were a big part of Strike Force, but then once the UFC opened up the divisions, that's when things kind of went down. People started, jumping ship. So, hey, man,
that's also when UFC bought Strike Force. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Julianna Pena. I've been a big fan of hers for years, and I'm happy for her success now. But sometimes you gotta show a little respect to some people, in my opinion. And Ronda makes herself an easy target. I'm not her biggest fan. I think Ronda's horrible in wrestling, but she does draw a crowd and she puts asses in seats. And Brandon, you always say, well, you're paid to fight, and you're getting paid more because she was on that card. So Same thing with Conor, right? Same thing. You get paid more when he's on that card, whether you like him or not.
All I know is that Ronda Rousey needs to acknowledge her tribal chief.
Well, we'll see if they ever add some women to the stable, and then she can have that beat. Elsewhere, speaking of trailblazing, Ariel Helwani, once again, he's talked about this before. You mentioned it off air with me. Ariel Helwani wants to create an actual MMA Hall of Fame. He wants to do it, obviously cross-promotional. Like his example was the other day, when you think of Fedor Emelianenko, he's one of the greatest heavyweights in the world. He never fought in the UFC. He'll never be in a UFC Hall of Fame with the likes of Randy Couture and all those guys, because he never fought in the UFC. But we know globally he's one of the greatest of all time. There's a number of fighters like that. Bellator's had its fair share of stars throughout the years. PFL is creating stars right now. If you were going to do a cross-promotional Hall of Fame, Brandon, there's a million names, but who right off the top of the bat would be the guy you would put in first?
Most likely, you probably would have to go with Royce Gracie to be the first person I would get into your MMA Hall of Fame.
I would actually go Ken Shamrock. And the reason why is Royce was the most decorated probably at the time. But Ken Shamrock is one of those names that took the sport, like Ronda Rousey. He took the sport global. He was doing the professional wrestling. He was doing everything else, him and Dan Severn. And, man, I got to tell you, man, like, I thought about this question before I asked it. Like, I thought about it for a couple of days. Like, who would I say? And I was like, Ken Shamrock, because he's kind of like diminished his own legacy nowadays with the way he's acted and portrayed. But, and that's another debate for another day. But what he did at the time was groundbreaking. And Royce Gracie's another one. I think about those early days. I think of people like Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner and the things we did. And, shout out to Stephen Bonner. I hope his situation gets better with everything going on with him. But if you had to think of some people that were never in the UFC, who would you throw in there besides Fedor?
I'm about to say, I feel like, how could you not have Sakuraba not go in there then? He's somebody. Heck, even he just fought and won, but I can't remember his name. The lightweight, not Sexy Yama, but his opponent. Yeah. Aoki. Why not? He was somebody big time in the Japanese MMA scene. He did a couple of fights in Strikeforce with Gilbert Melendez. So he's definitely somebody like. You got to pay homage to the Japanese scene. Like you can't just think about what's happening over here in the Northwest. Remember, this is the MMA Hall of Fame, so you gotta think about those guys over there. Heck, man, there was even guys who just fought just in Canada. TKO promotion or like the MFC. But
I'll go a step further. Somebody who he isn't, I believe he actually is in the UFC Hall of Fame, but Tank Abbott. Like early on, people forget. Like, people look how skilled MMA is today with all the different disciplines and stuff. But it evolved from tough man competitions. It evolved from backroom bar brawls. It evolved from these you set up this ring in a bar, and who's the toughest of the night, and they come out. Him, he was one of the most notable in the streets. Someone like Kimbo Slice. Then they turned that into a professional career. But these guys were sitting there knocking people out left and right. And that's what kind of drew the attention. It's what got the show banned a lot of times in the first couple UFCs. You could barely get it in a lot of these pay-per-views because these things were banned. Like, it was just tough, man. It was just glorified violence. And a lot of the pay-per-view companies weren't dealing with it. Campbell McLaren is another guy I would throw in there from a business side of things, the way he's done things. You see what he's doing with Global Combate now. Mm-hmm. He's actually just signed them to like a European deal. So they really are going global. And then another name I would actually throw in there is Dana White. As much as I hate him, as much as I disrespect him, the truth is he changed the game. We came in, he started running things more businesslike. He started cleaning a lot of the messes up, him and the Fertitta brothers, and look where they are now. Look where the UFC and MMA as a whole is now because they're putting more money on the table. Now, they can put more money in the fighters' pockets, but they're putting more money on the table. Do you think this supposed Hall of Fame will ever happen, though?
I honestly really want to say probably not. It's just like the World MMA Awards. Like how they have that. But yeah, it did take a minute for that because that's supposed to be a whole world thing. It's saying it's a different entity. It's like people just by themselves. But to do an actual building and everything like that, I don't know. You do have a boxing Hall of Fame, but then again, like speaking of what we were just about, man, with WrestleMania, like there is a WWE Hall of Fame, but there's not a Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Well, there is.
Oh, there is?
Cauliflower Club. No, that's basically what it is. It's a Hall of Fame.
We'll see.
Cauliflower Alley. Who knows? Yeah, it's good to talk about, though. It's definitely good, and it kind of segues into our next segment.
I was gonna say just one person who should be in the UFC Hall of Fame, but he isn't, and that's Frank Shamrock. But we'll see, man. You know how the UFC has ties, man. Frank Shamrock, he's a pioneer of the game too. Yeah,
and him and Ken have created rough waters for Dana and them in different ways. So, he holds grudges. Maybe once Dana moves on to different pastures, we might see that one day as like a legendary thing to put in there. Yep. But you never know. Kung Lee's another guy who will never probably get the credit because of the lawsuits. Anybody involved in those lawsuits pretty much is like they're not going to be probably inducted. Same thing with Vince and WWE. You're probably not going to see like we talked about Bad News Brown. He quit on bad terms with WWF at the time. You can think of a whole number of people. Dynamite Kid's another guy who's probably never going to be in the Hall of Fame anytime soon, but we know he's one of the favorites. It's every sport, every entertainment. I like what basketball does. You have an NBA Hall of Fame, but you also have a Naismith Hall of Fame, and that's all of basketball. And it has a lot of international players. It has a lot of NBA players, a lot of college greats, and I really love what they do. The MLB Hall of Fame has kind of been that way as well. Cooperstown has opened it up to the Negro Leagues and a number of other like international Japanese players and stuff like that. So that's been cool to see. Maybe one day the UFC does open up theirs to everything, and we'll see like that. We saw Vince induct Abdullah the Butcher, who never worked for him, just because he was a legendary name. So we've seen it. It could happen. Moving on, though, one thing we didn't talk about that probably do deserve a place in the Hall of Fame, refs. We talk about good refs. We talk about bad refs. I give Brandon shit all the time every time Herb Dean does one of those Herb Dean moments.
Herb Dean is the man.
Well, I know for one, he's not going to be your number one ref on this list, but it's a conversation me and Brandon have talked about. We know how bad MMA judging is, but there actually is genuinely some good MMA refs. The Jason Herzogs, the Mark Goddards, the At one point, Herb Dean was considered one of the best. You got Mark Smith. You got a number of others. And then you got the downside of everything, right? You got the Mario Yamazaki's who's not around anymore, the Keith Petersons, the so on and so forth. Not to spoil it, I'll let you come up with your own list, but we wanted to get together, come up with our top 3 list, who our top 3 referees are in the business. And then we go from there. Brandon, you're my dude. You're my guy. You're the co-host. I will let you go first, sir. Who are your top 3 refs? And then we'll go to who the worst ref is after we both give our list.
All right, so top 3. So going from 3 to 1. My third best ref is, to me, man, Mark Goddard, man, A class. You know, I always enjoy his work. I think he's definitely one of the best. Number 2.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. It could be any time too. It doesn't have to be active. It could be, all time.
All right. I'm well, lucky for me, all these guys are active. So I like Mark Goddard. Number 3. Number 2. I got to go with my guy Jason Herzog. Man, like I said, I've been a big fan of Herzog since.
I'm just laughing because I know where you're going for number 1.
Exactly, you know what it is.
I can't believe you're doing this to yourself.
But I want to give Herzog his credit, man. I've been a big fan of Herzog. Same man when he was in Bellator, because that's really where I saw him from, and I was like, man, I hope this guy can get some UFC fights. And the next thing you know, you kind of start seeing him more in the UFC. So I'm cool with that. And of course, man, number 1, OG guy. I know Mike loves to hate on him. People love to give him flack, but Herb Dean is still the top guy, man. He's still the top guy in my eyes. Hey, I got to go with Herb Dean, man. Saying he's been doing this the longest, so of course he's gonna have some mishaps. But hey, every ref has them.
Man, you did that to be spiteful.
I didn't,
because you always say Jason Herzog and Mark Goddard are like 1 and 2.
No, Herb Dean's always been 1. Herzog's 2, and then man, I like Mark Goddard because it was tough. Because like I said, Mark Goddard's 3, but hey, I just want to give an honorable mention. Mike Beltran, definitely a good guy. I like him in California, and I'm glad that he's doing more Vegas shows. But
man,
I like Mike Beltran. He's good.
Remember you said Beltran, because I'm gonna come back to that one because he's had some less than stellar moments lately. But as far as my top 3, I'll just go 1, 2, 3. I won't do the drama that my friend does. I think Mark Goddard's my number 1 ref. I think, even though I kind of criticized him giving the ref or the fighter the warning of like, you got 30 seconds to impress me. Overall, I don't think there's a fighter that better looks out for the athletes better than Mark Goddard. I think he's in there. I think he's constantly making good stoppages. He makes mistakes like every ref does, but I think overall, I think Mark Goddard, him and Jason Herzog are 1A and 1B. I think Jason is my number 2. And he made a mistake a few cards ago where he basically let a fight go on way too long and come out for another round when it really should have been over. I think both those together are hands down 1 and 2 for me. Like, they've both elevated themselves throughout the years. I think they've only gotten better. If this list was 5 years ago, I would have said Herb Dean all day. Like, I'm not going to BS you. Like, 5 years ago, Herb Dean all day. But there's been so many situations of, you see the memes. If he dies, he dies. Like pulling out the Rocky meme. Like, Herb Dean has been late to the ball a lot of times. And he's made certain decisions. He had the blow up with Dan Hardy because of certain things he did. It's one of those things where, and Herb Dean, believe it or not, is not my worst ref either.
I'm still waiting for you to tell me number 3 over here, guy. You just going on Herb Dean.
I'm getting it, but like I said, 5 years ago, I would have said Herb Dean. One name I think gets forgotten because he's kind of retired now, which is why I kind of told you that, was John McCarthy. I think John McCarthy knows the sport better than any ref ever. Like, he knows. You hear him with Josh Thompson all the time on their podcast. He's been around since I think like UFC 9 or 8. He's been around forever. He's been around during the licensing era. He's been around during some of the things, and you very rarely see him ever mess up. Like, he's been one of the best, and he's done Bellator. He's done UFC. He was banned for UFC for a while because him and Dana were beefing, and you see all the different like states he's done. Everybody kind of highly regards him. this list was also 5 years ago, he would have been number 2 on that list behind Herb Dean. But now he's kind of retired. He's kind of doing his own thing. But overall, I think the respect, if there was a Hall of Fame for refs, I think John McCarthy and Herb Dean would be 1, 2 in that Hall of Fame, because they are definitely people that kind of changed the way people look at referees, and they made their name almost as big as the fighters sometimes in the sport. So I think it's Mark Goddard, I think it's Jason Herzog, and I think it's John McCarthy. But now this is kind of the Razzie section, like who's the worst. And I'll start this one off. I'm not going with Herb Dean, believe it or not. Your boy Mike Beltran was very up there on my list for worst, because if you watch some of the fights he's ref lately, it's been bloodbaths. It's been really messed up. He hasn't been protecting the fighters a lot. I don't even know what he's looking at half the time. And I used to have a lot of respect for Mike Beltran, but honestly, I don't think he gets in position the way he needs to. But he's not the worst. I think the worst overall, you have to go with Mario Yamasaki. I think Mario Yamasaki's damn near let multiple fighters almost go to like death. And he's a local DMV guy from where I'm from, the DC area. So I got some respect for him. His MMA school in the area is pretty good. But Mario Yamasaki and Keith Peterson actually is another guy. They're like 1, 2. But my worst referee of all time is Mario Yamasaki. Who's yours?
Man, see, I was thinking about current day, but when we talking about all time, man, it's not Mario Yamasaki. I mean, I can't remember his name, man. I knew it was all time. I thought it was just right now. I can't think of his name, man. Oh man, I can't remember. It starts with an M. I know.
Mazzagatti?
Yes, there you go. Mazzagatti, dude. That guy was so bad that the UFC was like, deuces, man. You're never reffing the show again. But Mario Yamasaki, he was still reffing shows. Dude, Steve Mazzagatti, man, he got booted out of the UFC. That man, he had the ref Muay Thai fights in a lion fight in Vegas. That's how it was, man. They was like, yo, say bye to MMA, man. And so yeah, Mazzagatti, that would be my worst ref all time.
I was trying to look up the name of the one that did the fight. It was on the same card that Jason Herzog let his fight go too long also. But it was right after the other fight with the ex-military dude that they kept letting go into the third round, even though he should have stopped it. And everybody was bashing that ref. And he's only it was a French dude.
I know who you're talking about.
What was his name?
Yeah, wasn't he a ex-fighter too?
Yeah, allegedly. And I would also throw Dan Mergliotta in there as well.
Whoa. Hey, Big Dan's another honorable mention, all right? Honorable mention, Big Dan, Mike Beltran, and Mark Smith. Those are my 3 honorable mentions, all right?
Mark Smith was my number 3 before I decided to add all time. Mark Smith was definitely my 3rd best ref in active today. I have a lot of respect for Mark Smith. I think he's right up there with Goddard and Herzog. But he's like he's clearly a number 3, like those two, and then there's Mark Smith. And there's a lot of up and coming refs. Sadly, there's still a lot of bad referees in the sport too, though, because on Thursdays we do Crossing Borders on the network, and there was a fight that took place, a big flyweight title fight for the ladies at the last Luke's card, Luke's Fight League 21, and there was a young lady reffing the fight. And I don't know how much experience she has. Obviously, Luke's is kind of like CFFC, but in Mexico, as far as building up regional scene. They got a lot of love because of UFC Fight Pass and their deals with ESPN Deportes and Fox Sports and stuff. So they're becoming a bigger deal. But that fight, you saw the girl who eventually won was clearly going to win regardless. But she landed a kick on the ground to somebody's face. She also landed an illegal knee. She was constantly grabbing the cage, and the ref didn't say a single thing about any of it. And so you could see the ref's eyes were glued on the action, not necessarily on some of the other stuff going on. And even the announcers, including Alex Soto, who's my co-host on the show, he's also the Luke's Fight League color commentary. He was calling it out, like, look at that, look at this happening, and the ref just didn't see nothing. So you look at all these, we look at the refs on a grand stage, right, Brandon? But those regional refs, a lot of times these fighters are putting their lives on the line because they don't know. We've seen fighters die in the cage, especially on the regional scene. We saw that one fighter in Canada. We've seen it with boxing. So we kind of take for granted some of the refs we see, especially on the grand stage. Even Herb Dean, who would be 1,000 times better than a lot of these regional refs who are just breaking in and don't really know the sport the way they should, or they're former fighters thinking they know everything, but they really don't know which angle to look at when you're on the other side of it. Roughing's hard. MMA judging is hard. We give it a lot of shit, but it's hard. Any final thoughts? Any more honorable mentions before we get out of here or go on to make our picks?
Nah, man, that's it. I gave my top three, and I gave my three honorable mentions. So we're good, man. We're good. Herb Dean's still number one, baby. He's number one in your heart. You know it.
He's really not. He's really not. All right, Brandon. Your lead dog is back in action. I'm trying not to pat my back too much. But another week, another dollar. I should be going to Vegas. But anyway, back in action, UFC 273. We're going to bat this weekend, a big card. Of course, your boy Julio Arce is in action, your teammate. We got the headliners with Volkanovski and Korean Zombie. We got the co-headliner with Sterling and Jan finally happening. There's a lot to break down on the Jan side of things we'll talk about. And then we got so many other fights, Gilbert Burns, Hameyev. We got Dern and Torres from Hell Pinchel, and Mark Madsen's going to be a great fight. Rosenstrike's in action. We got Ladd and Pennington. Just so many great fights on that card. Let's start with the main event. We got Alexander Volkanovski going against the Korean Zombie, obviously a fill-in for Max Holloway, who coincidentally was available for this fight after all. But this is the fight we got. Who do you got in this fight, and tell me why?
I'm gonna go with the champ, man. I'm saying, hey, I like Korean Zombie, but you know what? I always been kind of picking against Volkanovski. I think except for the Ortega fight, but to me, man, dude, Volkanovski, to me, he until he's beaten, I got to see it. Like, what was it? I think he's like unbeaten like his last like 22 fights or something like that. Like saying the dude's on a monster tear, comes from a good camp, good team. Saying, hey, I know Korean Zombie is now hanging out at Fight Ready. With Henry Cejudo and all of them. He was at the MMA lab with Benson Henderson, but hey, he changed it up for this fight. But I'm just gonna still go with Volkanovski, man. Until I see somebody beat him, I got to go with the champ.
Yeah, I don't have much. I mean, look, Zombie has looked great at times. He's looked horrible at times. But he's one of the best at featherweight in the world. But look, Volkanovski's on a different level right now. Like, he's mowing through these dudes. You saw what he did to T-City, and you saw what T-City did to Zombie. So, like, how could I pick against Volkanovski in this fight?
MMA math will get you in trouble, sir. MMA math will get you in trouble.
That's very true. But in this case, if this was Max fighting Volkanovski, who I thought actually beat Volkanovski last time and just got robbed in the decision, I would be picking Max. But this is Zombie versus Volkanovski, and Volkanovski is on a different level right now. I think him and Max are 1 and 2. Whatever order you want to put them in, the belt doesn't matter. In the UFC, we can have a whole other discussion if we're talking, globally with Pitbull and AJ McKee and all those guys. But in the UFC, it's Volkanovski's world right now, with Holloway knocking on the door again. And so I got Volkanovski over Zombie, and I think it will set up that Holloway fight later in the year. And I don't even think this fight's going very long, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be probably a first or second round stoppage. Because I think Volkanovski's that tuned up right now. I think it was T-City's. I think Brian Ortega's toughness that got him through that fight as long as it did. Because that fight could have been stopped earlier than it was, too. Because he was getting brutalized. Over in the co-main event, we got another title fight. Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan finally running it back. Of course, the infamous knee disqualification last year. Last year at this point, because it's dragged on for so long. We finally got it. Brandon, who you got in this fight? And tell me what's going to happen.
Man, you already know, man. I picked Aljamain Sterling the first time. I'm picking Aljamain Sterling the second time, saying he was winning the first 2 rounds in that first fight, and then hey, he slowed down. I think he's gonna just remember what he did the last time. Hopefully this time he will eat that day, because according to him, he didn't really eat. So that's kind of why his gas tank went out. Saying he got his neck fixed, he got his wrist fixed. I think he's feeling 100%. I think he's gonna be all full gears, and he's gonna take care of business on Peter Yan.
So I'm torn on this pick. If this was a normal world, a normal event, I would take Peter Yan all day. Like Peter Yan was picking him apart the third, fourth, and fifth round. It wasn't necessarily he wasn't neat. Peter Yan's one of the smartest fighters you get in that cage. He knows strategy. We talked about best on Battleground. We talked about the best boxers in MMA. He was one of them. He knows angles. You saw it with Corey Sandhagen. He knows how to adjust in a fight, like they're on the fly. And he figured out Sterling, and he was picking him apart the third, fourth, and until the knee, and even part of the second round. But this is also the real world where we have a conflict going over in Russia and Ukraine, where Peter Yan's entire team cannot come over and coach him. He has none of his corner here for this fight. He has a running gag going on right now with Sean O'Malley. Henry Cejudo said he won't be cornering him. So we don't even know who's going to be in his corner come Saturday night. I hear privately he keeps reaching out to Khabib, hoping he'll come over and corner him. He's jokingly said, I just need somebody to hold my water bottle and towel. I got this, which make me think he's a little bit too arrogant going into this rematch because he thinks he knows something about Sterling and he hasn't figured out. I would pick Sterling only in the worst case scenario because I think Peter Yan is that good. This might be the worst case scenario. And I hate to agree with you, but Sterling looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He has a chip on his shoulder from all the doubters that including me. I think he's been running from this rematch. But this might be the perfect storm for him to get this win because we don't know if Peter Yan's going to be ready to go on Saturday. He's a professional fighter. He's done this for a long time. He knows how to get himself ready for fight day. But who's managing his weight cut right now in Jacksonville? Who's managing his training in Jacksonville? Is he just basically showing up at gym and shadow boxing for 4 or 5 days until it's time to fight? Like, who's he working with? We don't know any of those answers. Is he working with a local gym down there? Is he going down with like some of the other MMA gyms in Florida, like Sanford or Top Team or anything, and working there? As far as I know, he's not. So I don't know what's up with Peter Yan, and I think that's the biggest question going into this one. And it may even lead to a trilogy fight down the road because if Sterling wins this one, then everybody's going to be like, well, Peter Yan was dealing with all this fallout from the Russia-Ukraine thing. So we'll see, but I'm actually picking Sterling in this fight. I know it's a surprise because I know you thought I was probably going to pick Yan, but I'm actually picking Sterling in this fight. A lot of other great action going on this card. Duran Torres, I talked about Pinchot, Madsen, Gary, and Weeks. A lot of good up-and-coming fights. Rosenstrike versus Tabora will be a fun fight. Aspen Ladd and Raquel Pennington is going to be a fun fight. Mickey Gall and Mallet, I'm looking forward to that fight. Olenek and Vanderraa just got added to the card. Hernandez and Fremd, Rodriguez and Kay Hansen, and then your boy Julio Arce going against Daniel Gustavo Santos. I know who your fight pick is. We know it's Julio Arce. Tell us what happens in that fight.
Julio Arce is going to go in there and get the job done. Hand raised. Doesn't matter if it's knockout, submission, or by decision. All I know is, man, Julio, man, he is on another level right now. He's been looking real sharp in training. Saying, man, he's gonna go out there. He's going to start the show with a bang, like your boy Paul Heyman likes to say. You either want to be the first fight of the night or the last fight of the night. Julio Arce is the first fight. He's gonna get the show started.
I think that more applies to the main card, but in this case, we just had a talk about it. Nobody watching the prelims for it. But in this case, it will be a fun fight to start the card. I actually think it's going to be a lot closer fight than people think. Gustavo Santos 8-1. I was looking at his record, looking at some of his fights going into this one. Kid's explosive. It's going to be a fun fight. But Julio Arce always brings the heat and fire. So I'm looking forward to that fight. It's going to be a slugfest. I went back and forth with my fight pick a lot, but I think it would be remiss if one of us didn't talk about Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev. On the main card, obviously, it's basically like a glorified co-main event. Because if there wasn't 2 title fights, it would be one of the co-main events. Chimaev 10-0 has risen through the rankings fast. Conor McGregor, he has just kind of skyrocketed up the rankings. Gilbert Burns, former title contender, Even had Usman rocked in the first round or so, and then Usman's experience and abilities took over. And then you saw Gilbert Burns bounce back and just dominate Stephen Thompson, just dominated. We haven't seen Stephen Thompson dominated like that ever. So I really had a hard time picking this fight, but I'm picking Chimaev. I think Khamzat presents a different set of problems for Burns. Obviously, Burns doesn't care about the reach and length because he dealt with that with Thompson like it was nothing. He got inside him. He did things like that. But Chimaev has one thing Thompson doesn't, grappling. And we saw it in his last fight where he got the quick rear naked. You see him just throwing people around like no concern for stamina and whatever. He trains like an animal. Like he has no chill. You'll find it hard to find it. It'll be hard to find somebody that trains harder than Khamzat Chimaev. He basically lives in the gym. And that's not a disrespect to Gilbert Burns. I love watching Gilbert fight. I think he's so much fun and entertaining. And if he gets into a grappling match, it could be, Gilbert has a chance. Obviously, he's one of the top grapplers in all of MMA. But I think Chimaev is skyrocketing his way towards Usman, or Izzy, depending on the day. So that's my pick in that one. Before we get out of here, any other fights you're excited about on that card?
Yeah,
do you have any thoughts on that fight?
Well, I was gonna say, man. I mean, I'm picking. I'm against you. I think this is Gilbert Burns' fight to win. Like I said, man. Like it's either you think that Chimaev is on his way to the top, or you think that he's not ready yet. And to me, man, I just haven't seen it yet. Like all the people he's beaten, they're good, but they're not on Gilbert Burns' level yet. So I don't know. I don't know if he's there yet. This fight will show us. Like I said, man, Gilbert Burns got power in his hands. Good striker. He is a jiu-jitsu black belt. So to me, man, if they go to the ground, you got to be able, man. Gilbert Burns can put some submissions on. Chimaev has the wrestling, but I think Gilbert Burns knows that. Huh?
You picked Lee last time too.
Yeah, like again, I'm telling you, Chimaev has not beaten those people. But Lee is good. Saying Lee is good, but he's not on Gilbert Burns' level. This is a different level. All right, this is a different level. Like I said, until I got to see it first before I can believe it.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Yeah, we're gonna have a different opinion on that one. I think Chimaev's chokes is another thing you're sleeping on too, because he has a ton of Bravo chokes and stuff like that too. But go ahead. What else are you looking forward to on this card?
I got my eyes on that Dern Torres fight.
I was gonna say there's a couple ladies fights that's kind of probably got your attention.
Yeah, I'm saying like that fight I'm looking forward to, man. The Ladd Pennington one, I'm kind of really iffy about, man. I mean, maybe just because I'm kind of down on Ladd. I don't know. I got Pennington in that one.
I got Pennington too, and I'll throw another fight I'm really looking forward to. Really a test to see how serious Marco Madsen is. Going against from Hell Pinchel. Yeah. I think that's going to be his toughest challenge, but I think Madsen's another guy that's on the rise, ready for a contender type fight, and I think that's going to be a great challenge. And then to see Rosenstrike all the way down at like the 7th fight on the card against Tabora, I think is crazy. That just shows you how deep this card is. They even threw Olenek and Vanderaa in that card, so a lot of fun stuff. And Mike Mallett's another dude. We've always known him as one of the top coaches at Team Alpha Male. Obviously had the fight. He gave Solomon a loss in CFFC. Had an impressive performance at Dana White Contender Series, and now here he is fighting Mickey Gall, who's another guy, who's was an up-and-comer. Now he's kind of like a little bit more of a vet in the sport. It's gonna be a really good fight. So stacked card this Saturday night in Jacksonville. I wish I could make the drive up there to see it. I really, this is a card I would want to see. But I will be at home watching with all of you. Brandon, any final thoughts this weekend today before we get out of here?
Yeah, man. Hey guys, I know I was supposed to fight April 2nd, back in Atlantic City. Didn't go down. Teammates, so I had a couple of teammates on there. We went 3-1 that night. But just letting you guys know, be on the lookout. Been in talks. Fight news hopefully coming soon. Maybe we're looking at maybe and maybe in June. So keep it out. Saying I haven't posted anything on social media yet, but hey, I'm just letting you guys know first on the Fighters First Network, since you guys are my peoples. Be on the lookout. Fight news hopefully coming soon, maybe next week.
I'm nervous with you even announcing that because like don't jinx it, Brandon.
It's already really locked.
Knock on wood. I mean, geez. I'm still waiting for the UWA to give me a call so I can show up and give you an RKO. But one day it's gonna happen. Gonna be in the crowd, just come out of nowhere, come like, yeah, that's my boy, that's Brandon. Yeah, go RKO, boom. Speaking of wrestling, had it all tied in. Before we get out of here, check out FightersFirst.shop. You know where the bread is buttered. Like Danhausen says, we love the monies. Come support your show, support the friends. We got a lot of really cool vintage stuff in there. We're still working on more stuff for the Vintage 22 collection. Speaking of Brandon, I'm working on a shirt for him and Tim for the Kicking It collection. I'm working one for Slamtown. I'm finishing up some of the really cool stuff for Bad News Brown. And then, we're going to come out with some hoodies and sweats. Having a lot of fun with this collection, doing a lot of the retro stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying it all. I'm getting really good feedback with a lot of it. Posting a lot of the vintage clips on our social media, so check those out. Your boy over here, Mr. Viral Sensation, over on our TikTok channel. Check it out at Fighters First on TikTok. He's got over 16,000 views for his last clip. We can't get him on TikTok, but his videos on TikTok.
Hey man, the videos can go there, baby. You get the videos on TikTok.
I'm trying to get him to open a TikTok account at this point. I'm like, Brandon, you're missing the boat. Tell him at home. Leave a comment. Tell him to get on the Connor. Look, this dude is younger than me, but acts 100 years older than me. So get him on the social media train. Get him going. He's lucky that he has a loving wife that does a lot of that posting for him because he would just sit there and go to Devils games all day if he could.
Hey, man, Twitter's where it's at, man. I'm just a Twitter guy. I mean, I do the gram for the peoples. I didn't really want to do the gram or Facebook, but I do it for the peoples. TikTok, you probably won't get me on it, but you never know.
Never know. All right. For the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll see you next week. We're out.